Alright, welcome ladies and gentlemen, back to Tinfoil Adventures. It's been a while. I haven't uploaded much of anything in a long time, simply because I just was not sure what type of content I wanted to do on this channel. I know it had to do with, mysteries and conspiracies and stuff like that, because that stuff is fun. But overall, wasn't quite sure exactly the format I wanted to do. Excuse me, I'll be taking periodic sips of coffee. Hopefully it doesn't get picked up on the mic. But that doesn't mean I haven't been, active. Not active, but paying attention to what's been going on in the, conspiracy world. And the big thing, the big hubbub, is David Grusch, the brand new whistleblower that supposedly has evidence that he can't show to anybody except for in private rooms to government officials about secret UFO. I'm just gonna call them UFOs. I know it's UAP is the big word right now, but I don't know, UFOs just rolls off the tongue better. So claims a secret UFO crash retrieval program by the US that is illegal, that has been doing this stuff for a while, that a lot of this UFO alien stuff in the government's been going on for a very long time. Makes some pretty outlandish claims too, but let's get into it. First of all, who is David Grusch? Well, he is a former intelligence officer in the government, I believe in the military. He was part of the UAP task force, I believe, or some sort of organization that studied UFOs and stuff like that. He is coming out as a whistleblower, quote unquote. I don't know, like everybody's calling him whistleblower, but I don't know if he meets the criteria for that, because he went to the Department of Defense. I think it was Department of Defense. Oh man, I had my facts all over here. Well, it was the proper what do you call it, authorities, I guess, in the Pentagon, and he literally asked permission if he could disclose this stuff, and they gave him permission, which is interesting. Well, I can't remember the specific department. I want to say it was Department of Defense, but either way, it was the department in the Pentagon where you need to get permission to talk about certain things, and they decide whether it is a security risk of any kind. So they either deny you or approve you. And they approved him of talking about the stuff. Now, what is it likely? Likely it's, well, we have no idea what this guy is talking about. We don't know anything about this kind of stuff, so whatever, go nuts, dude. Or there is some sort of secret black ops crash retrieval program that like nobody in the Pentagon or Congress knows about it, and they're just like, well, we have nothing about it. As far as we know, it doesn't exist. Go for it. Or who knows? It could be a third option where they don't know about it. Maybe they somewhat believe him or think if he's right could be a security risk, and maybe it'd be a good idea to go talk about it. So that's another option. But either way, I don't know about if whistleblower is the right term. So he got permission to talk about it, so it means he pretty much isn't going to be in trouble with who he used to work with in that regards. Whether David Grusch would get in trouble for testifying under oath in Congress is another debate, and we'll talk about that later. I don't think he will be, but it is possible. So I got some notes here I just want to quickly go over. He worked at a UAP task force in the intelligence community. He had a pretty high level clearance. All of this is coming from what he says, and there's no reason to doubt him at this point because he testified in front of Congress. He had all this stuff. So in terms of being an intelligence officer and working where he worked, I believe that part. So yeah, it says there's a U.S. crash retrieval program for alien stuff. The Defense Office. Okay, I just found the notes. Some sort. I guess the Department of Defense Office sought permission about it. He claims that what is being done is illegal, which is kind of interesting. Why is it illegal? Is it illegal because no one knows about it and they're just using resources and money they siphon away to do it? Or are people not supposed to be retrieving downed aircraft, because you would think if there was downed aircraft in U.S. airspace or anywhere in U.S. territory, you probably want to go check it out, right? Whether alien or other human or whatever. And if someone did find aliens, yeah, you bet your ass the military would be all up in that shit. But who knows? He don't remember him specifying why it was illegal. But a lot of the stuff he talked about in the hearing was, you know, he couldn't talk about it. It has to be behind closed doors, which is very odd. I thought it was very weird that some of the answers he couldn't give, because he's already, you know, quote unquote, blowing the whistle on this. But there was a few answers where he says couldn't tell you, which was weird, which to me wouldn't have made a difference in terms of, you know, what could and can't say. He says he'll get in a lot of more trouble if he says this, but like, wouldn't, if has been harassed like he claims he has by the people he used to work with, you'd think he'll be in major trouble already, but I'm not sure. Let me get back to this. Okay. He says there's a disinformation operation by the intelligence on this stuff, which, yeah, I could see that, you know. A good example of a lot of disinformation that the U.S. government does, for example, was the Iraq War back in the early 2000s, the whole weapons of mass destruction thing, and everybody ate it up. I mean, I was too young to even really care. I was too busy playing Game Boy and fucking, you know, Legos and shit at the time. I'm 28 now, but I was still a young buck then. But yeah, government pretty much outright lied. So if there is a sort of UFO kind of thing going on in the backgrounds and they did want to keep it a secret, yeah, I could see them turning that shit into a stigmatized topic. And it wouldn't be that hard either. I could imagine someone with the pull of the CIA or the government, you know, just launching all sorts of media campaigns about how dumb UFOs are and they're not real, would catch on pretty quick. So yeah, I mean, the disinformation campaign, assuming he says everything else, assuming everything else he says is correct, would make sense. So let's see what else we got. This disinformation campaign says he faced a lot of retaliation, but the problem with the retaliation he says he faced, you know, he said it was horrible. He says it really upset him, all this stuff, but he never specifically said what they did. And then in the interviews I've seen, he never specified what the retaliation was. Like, was it death? Was it just death threats? Did they actually break into his house? There would be a later thing that happened after his initial interview, I guess, where apparently someone leaked his medical documents, and he is a veteran, and he did suffer from PTSD, and apparently he was suicidal at one point and was admitted, which I know there's also another stigma when it comes to believing people who do that, but the problem with that is that's a stigma that kind of exists for a reason. Because there are a lot of veterans that unfortunately do kind of go crazy from PTSD and all that stuff, and there's a lot of instances where they are delusional. I'm not saying he is. All I'm saying is whether it was leaked or not, or someone else found it a different way, having a mental illness background does not help his case at all. I don't know if that's too harsh to say, but that's just a fact, you know. You're not going to trust a mentally ill person who says they saw aliens and do that. You're going to need proof. I mean, regardless of his mental illness background, I don't think it really plays a factor into this whole thing, to be honest. I don't really take too much stock into it, but it doesn't help. You know, the best case to talk about that is the whole Dulce underground alien war thing going on. I forgot the guy's name who said that, but you know what I'm talking about. Anybody who's in the know-how with the whole UFO lore knows about Dulce underground base, where all sorts of like the most insane claims were claimed by this guy. It turns out later that the guy did have like a serious case of mental illness, and like that whole story could pretty much be thrown out the window at this point. I think it could be thoroughly debunked, or who knows, maybe he was on something, but it's unlikely. But same thing with Grusch, though. A lot of his claims are unproven, I should say. But yeah, talking about being faced with retaliation, but never specified what. Maybe if he showed some sort of proof of that retaliation, that could raise some eyebrows. Because just to tell you, everything he claims, he has no evidence. He never provided anybody, as far as we know, with any evidence. Maybe some Congress officials behind the scenes, because he said in the hearing that he'd be more than willing to share some stuff with them in private, but who knows what that stuff was, whether it was significant or whether it even mattered. But yeah, everything he said was through interviews, documents, and pictures. He never himself saw any of this stuff, which already kind of doesn't, how should I put this? It really doesn't help his case. But maybe if he showed some sort of evidence for this retaliation that he was claiming happened to him by the people he was whistleblowing on, that could be something interesting if he could show some sort of proof of that. I doubt that'll, make it any better or worse if he showed that, but who knows? So let's see. I already talked about the medical records leaked. There's whatever. And I should say, I guess I'll say specifically what he's claiming right now. It's, like I said, illegal crash retrieval program, claims there was straight up alien ships and that there was, some sort of bodies or something retrieved along with it. Now, he doesn't outright call them aliens. And this kind of rubs me the wrong way, because he specifically says non-human biologics. He wants to call it, because he says he doesn't want to denote origins, and he thinks they could be extra dimensional and all that stuff, and he wants to invoke the holographic principle of quantum mechanics. That's what he said. Now, I am a physics student in college right now, and the holographic principle is very theoretical, and it's about as true as string theory at the moment, which, there's just no... It's basically a mathematical concept, more or less. Like, the math just looks pretty, so therefore they have it. And the math lines up, and it looks pretty, and it could be a prediction, but the problem is, with him claiming that he doesn't want to denote origins, that they don't have to be aliens, they could be extra dimensional, they could be this, is first you got to prove that this, whatever you're claiming, even exists. You're just saying this stuff, and then you don't have any proof that it exists, and then you're already speculating on, beyond the existence, like where they come from, where are they from, blah blah blah. And as a physics student, I've seen a lot of people invoke physics and talk about all this, quantum, this, like, it's like, Ant-Man movie. They just throw quantum in front of everything to make themselves sound smart, and then people have no idea what they're talking about. Just go, ooh, fancy. Now, granted, I haven't finished my physics degree yet, but I know the basics of it all. Like, I know enough, and I could always, do research if I need to, but it definitely seemed like when he was trying to invoke the holographic principle to explain where they could be from, he didn't quite know it. It felt like he just was reading off a script, didn't really quite know what he was talking about. He said it in the most vague way possible and didn't really go into detail. See, me as a science student, and I like to consider myself a bit of a scientist because, all that. If you're going to invoke science and talk about it, I need some specific details, give me where this information came from. Give me who is writing this information. Give me the paper you read it from. Give me something more than just, this is the theoretical. Because even he says this is just theoretical, but the thing is, you haven't even proven your initial claim. You can't go beyond that and already talk about theoretics. That part's never sat right with me. And this happens a lot with bogus people. They'll make their initial claim and then just stack more claims on top of that, where they haven't even proven that. Like, you can't prove to me that the aliens are from another dimension or from Zeta Reticuli or whatever, first you got to prove that they even exist in the first place. Like, you haven't even made it past step 1. You're skipping to like step 4, 5, or 6. No, you got to go to step 1 and actually first prove to us that they exist, because the speculation does nothing for anybody. It's useless. And another thing that I've noticed with bogus people is the way they answer questions. And David Grusch kind of answered questions in a way that I didn't like. So, for example, let me know when you've heard this before. You ask somebody a super basic question. Sometimes it's even a yes or no answer. It's like, did you see aliens in this government base? And rather than saying yes or no, he goes something like this. Well, that's an interesting question. You see, back when I was... And then, he just kind of goes on and then just kind of, drones on about it. Like, it's a long... When short answers are made longer than they need to be, that's kind of a sign of bullshit. And he does that quite often, What else? Let's see what else I got here. Let's see. So let's get to my notes about the hearing itself. We have George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell were present at this. So George Knapp is a journalist who's reported on this for a while. He was the guy behind the whole Bob Lazar thing. And I like comparing Bob Lazar to this guy because they're very similar in a way. But the problem with Bob Lazar, at the very least, claims to have seen the shit himself and claims to have worked on it and claims to supposedly have some sort of exotic material, which I'll be honest with you, I don't really believe in Bob Lazar. My very first video is a video on Bob Lazar, because his story is fascinating and very interesting. Even if it's fake and not true, which I don't think it is, I still appreciate the guy for coming up with all that stuff, because it is very fun. But this guy, at least Bob Lazar, claims to have seen the stuff himself. So with Bob Lazar, you can either believe him or call him a liar. It's like one or the other. With David Grusch, it's either he's a liar, looking for attention, getting his 15 minutes, because a lot of people are like, well, what does he have to gain from it? A lot, actually. Just look at Bob Lazar, for example. He claims he does not get any money, does not make any kind of benefit from this. That's a lie. That was a straight up lie. Go to his website right now. You'll see he sells merchandise. He sells his book. You really think that Netflix movie with Jeremy Corbell, he didn't get paid for that? I really doubt he did it out of the kindness of his heart. Bob Lazar owns his own business, and any kind of public exposure about a story, I guarantee a lot of people will go to his business just to see him. That is exposure for his business. More exposure means more money. No, Bob Lazar has made a decent amount of money off of this. And David Grusch's career was pretty much over. I don't know if it was over because of this incident or if he just retired and then decided, well, what's next for me? How about some UFO stuff? This is fun. Because it could have been that. Now, Bob Lazar has a lot of shady stuff why I don't believe his story. You can see my first video in the channel if you want to deep dive into that. But yeah, I put David Grusch's story one tier below Bob Lazar. Like I said, Bob Lazar is either he's a liar or he's not. David Grusch he's a liar and doing this for publicity, or he's not a liar and he's telling the truth and he himself believes this, or this is all true and he's doing what he's doing. Or there's other options. It's maybe he believes it but someone's messing with him, because his information is third source. So it's hard for anybody to call him a liar, because he himself could believe it, but somebody else could be pulling his leg. Or maybe this is part of some sort of weird misinformation, because a lot of intelligence stuff, they'll give people bogus information just sprinkled in there to see who is full of shit. But with that, I mean, it's if somebody were to leak their information, the information they leak has some bogus information sprinkled in there, and everybody's bogus information is different. So that way, as soon as that specific bit of bogus gets released, they know exactly who, released it. And for all we know, this could have been part of that bogus information for him, and maybe the reason he's getting retaliation is because on top of this, he released something else he probably shouldn't have. Who knows? But yeah, like with Grusch, it's hard to know what's really going on. He's either a liar, he's not a liar, he's being played for a fool. It could be other factors because there's so many moving parts here, and it's tougher to say for sure which one's true because there's more options. Let's see. Other than him, there was Commander David Fravor and Lieutenant Ryan Graves with the hearing. I'm not going to talk much about them because this is more of a David Grusch episode. But to put it shortly, Commander David Fravor and Ryan Graves are probably the most reliable witnesses ever for like UFO sightings. Now, that doesn't mean what they saw is straight up UFOs and aliens. And it doesn't mean, it doesn't do a lot of implications. And to give those two credit, they don't throw out those kind of implications. Commander Fravor literally just said there's a tic tac, it moved crazy, it messed with us. Ryan Graves said there was other stuff that he saw and other witnesses saw, and they just feel like it's a safety hazard to pilots who are training. It could be a security risk because what if it is like China or Russia, and they should probably investigate that shit, right? So their reasoning for being here is very well founded and it makes a lot of sense. And they don't go with the crazy, conspiracy route about this has to be aliens, interdimensional, blah blah blah. Even I think it was Fravor who said somewhere during the meeting where he said, we shouldn't speculate on origins of these things or where they're from. It does us no good. I'm paraphrasing here. It's not exactly what he said, but he said something along those lines, which is hilarious because, I think 2 dialogues later, Grusch starts speculating on the whole interdimensional holographic principle kind of thing, which I agree with Fravor. It literally does us no good. First, we got to prove they're there. We got to figure out what they are, and then we could worry about where they come from and their capabilities and all that stuff, and whether they're from another planet, interdimensional, or from another country, or maybe top secret U.S. government. Because here's the thing. It would not surprise me that it was U.S. government tech or other countries' tech. And here's why. It's not so unbelievable to me. Because everybody always says, well, it has technology that we don't know of. It's crazy. We don't have any kind of this technology on the field. It's like, yes, that we know of. Think about 1945, right? Before the atomic bomb, it would take hundreds of thousands of bombs to level a decent sized city. People don't know this. They think just one missile, one artillery strike on a building and it just collapses and it's done. No. Buildings are made pretty sturdy. If you look at the war in Ukraine today, yes, a lot of the towns look like absolute shit because of the war and stuff, but many buildings are still standing. It takes a lot to level a city with conventional bombs. And we went from that to being able to flatten a city in one single bomb. That's kind of a huge leap in technology, wouldn't you say? And that happened. We know that happened. So, and then, of course, the old UFO sightings in the, 80s and 90s, maybe even 70s, of the old stealth bomber, the Black Triangle stealth fighter and bomber. That was a UFO. And then we never knew that there was something that could, reduce detection chance on radar. But there you go. It went from conventional stuff to stealth bomber, just like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if we went from jet propulsion to some sort of anti-gravity tech that somebody found out. Because we discover crazy stuff all the time. I don't know if anybody pays attention to science papers and stuff like that. There's some pretty interesting stuff that has a lot of cool implications and potentials that is discovered damn near every month. Where if you could really harness this stuff, you could make some crazy technology off it. So it would not surprise me if this stuff is, from basically human made. right? From somebody, whether US or China or whoever. It most likely US, since it's in US airspace, and you know, US has the resources for this kind of stuff compared to most countries. So it's not a big surprise if it was man-made. It's actually most likely like some sort of man-made drones or something, but who knows. Let's see what I got. All right, NASA and Department of Defense offices testifies they have no evidence of aliens, because there was also some sort of UFO investigations from there too. The US is aware of a lot more sightings that is not being made public, which is not surprising. Of course they would know. The reason a lot of these sightings are classified, people don't know this because they just think, why not just release this? It's because the sensors they use to detect this stuff in the radar systems and stuff like that is not made public. It's not public technology. Excuse me. They can't just show this stuff because, of course, Russia and China are going to be with their notepads and cameras writing this stuff down. So I understand why they don't want to show every single one of these, but I do agree with, I believe it was Commander Fravor who said it, that there are certain things that are over classified. Like they could release a lot of stuff and just blur out a lot of the information or block it out or whatever. So yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of stuff. I'm just kind of going through my notes and all the major points that I saw during the hearing. I kind of just jotted down. Ryan Graves says many sites are underreported and happen often, and that he feels that is a security risk. I would believe it, because like I said, whether it's from disinformation campaigns or it just happened that way, UFOs generally are kind of stigmatized. I have a coworker that actually claims to have saw a UFO, says it was like this weird translucent, seashell looking thing, which kind of reminded me of the Ryan Graves UFO, because I saw a picture of it and I sent it to him and asked him if this is what it looked like, and he said, oh, it looked pretty similar. But of course, I still talk shit about it. Like I make fun of him a little bit. I just bust his chops. We're friends like that. But there should be a mechanism to report this stuff. So yeah, my next note is Graves saw a black cube inside a transparent sphere that had crazy movements. That's going to be the main theme of a lot of the sightings they talk about, is it has movement unlike any other craft we've seen. Okay, so Grusch claims he was co-head of a UFO task force. He filed a PPD-19 urgent concern filing with the Department of Defense. Let's go see what that is. Okay, so I did a quick little search, and basically, what a PPD-19 filing is, the Presidential Policy Directive 19, is basically like if you're in the intelligence community and you suspect unlawful conduct or any wrongdoing, it basically means you do this filing, and the agency, whoever you work for, cannot legally reprimand you for it or fire you or do any kind of reprisals. So that's basically all it is, and I guess that's where David Grusch being called a whistleblower comes from, because if you do this filing, you're technically a whistleblower. So he did this filing, which is interesting that he did this filing and he says that there was reprisals, because under this filing it is illegal for any agency to reprimand you in any kind of way. But I'm also curious if what kind of evidence he's presenting, because I doubt you could just file this because my boss is being a douchebag and make up your own shit. Like there has to be an investigation of some sort, right? Especially with how high profile this is. So it's interesting. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So next part of it is, his testimony was basically all the information he got was given to him by others through oral testimony, through documents, through pictures. So again, he never actually saw any of this stuff he's claiming, which to me is a red flag. like if I'm in that position, right? I'm in the intelligence community and I see this kind of stuff. Let's say I personally see enough evidence to where I am convinced that this stuff is there, right? I'm still not going public. You wanna know why? Because until I have something I can prove to the public, to anybody I'm claiming this to, there's no point to going public. Because, you know, there's already a million people out there claiming UFOs and all this stuff. You know, look at Bob Lazar. Yeah, he got a lot of fame for it, but that'd be like the only reason why you would do this. I mean, it's hard to say because look, he did get a whole ass Congress hearing. Now, whether this Congress hearing was because they had legitimate concerns or whether they just wanted to entertain the masses, because a lot of these hearings are just a bunch of fluff that doesn't matter. And a good majority of that hearing was just a bunch of junk that just did not matter. You could have cut that hearing down by half the time and it would have been just the same amount of information. Because there's a lot of speeches, a lot of, you know, we should do this, we should do that. You know, we got to be transparent with the public and it's all about the people and yada, yada, yada. You know, all the usual government lawyer talk that happens. So people will make a big deal that, wow, Congress is actually taking this seriously. It's time to actually do this. But, like, honestly, you know, you got to think about what else is going on. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if they were just trying to distract people from other bullshit going on, which they do often. Like, that's been a proven fact. The government will often do a bunch of stuff, especially the Biden administration. They love doing this stuff because, you know, how corrupt this guy is and his son, whatever. They just, in their awful legislation, sorry. Yeah, distracting the public with a bunch of nonsense is like what they do when it comes to that stuff. What else? So yeah, I don't think just because Congress heard these people out, I don't know that anything is that actually matters or if anything's going to change. We'll see. I got a few buddies in the military. One of them is in intelligence, and I'm not sure if I'll have to ask him, see if he noticed any changes because of this or if there was anything about it, but we'll see. All right, what else? Okay, there was a quote that David Grusch said that I wrote down because I found it very interesting, kind of damning. So he says, and I quote, "As I stand here under oath now, I am speaking to the facts as I have been told them." So a lot of people will say, oh, he's under oath. Why would he lie under oath? It is very, you know, he's putting his career and, you know, freedom on the line. He can get put to jail if he's lying. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to read that quote again, and you let me know. You guys can kind of get the gist of why that part doesn't really matter. He said, "As I stand here under oath now, I am speaking to the facts as I have been told them." So it's basically a way to cover his ass. You know, you can't prove that he's lying. He's just repeating what somebody else told him. You know, if somebody else truly told him this, whether they're telling the truth or not, whether it's bullshit or not, then he's basically covered. You know who's going to prosecute that. And that's another thing. And in order to be sent to jail for lying under oath, somebody's got to prosecute that. If nobody cares enough to do that, then no one's gonna prosecute it. It's not like there's as far as I know, that there's just some prosecution team waiting to happen that just waits for somebody to lie under oath. Like, no, it'd be ridiculous because, you know, government lies all the fucking time. If they try to prosecute every single person who lied all the time, half the government would be in jail. But yeah, somebody's got to prosecute him, care enough to prosecute him. And then, first of all, it's going to be very hard to prove that he's lying because he just says, I'm just repeating what somebody else told me. I'm just telling you guys what the documents and whatever this show, you know, whatever I was shown. So I don't see him being prosecuted for lying under oath, even if he is full of shit. It's just not going to happen. Let's see what else. So it says he was a member of a UAP task force from 2019 to 2021. Was informed of a multi-decade UFO crash retrieval program. Says he suffered retaliations for his actions, but doesn't specify what. Again, I feel like it would do him a lot of good especially since he did what do you call it? File that, what was it, PPD, whatever it's called, PPD 19 report, which means they legally cannot retaliate against him if he feels like there's wrongdoing. Now the problem could be that he can't prove this stuff, even behind closed doors. And if you can't prove this stuff, you can't just go around making crazy accusations, you know? So maybe that's where the reprisals are coming. Maybe he is full of shit, has no proof, and was filing this stuff, and he couldn't prove it. So basically, the case is out the window. Like, you can't go to your boss and claim he fondled my ball sack when no one was looking and have no way to prove it, because who's gonna believe you? And especially the higher ups, who's gonna believe that your superiors are doing this stuff if there's no proof? Because think about it, it's easier to replace you than it is to replace your superiors. Finding a good officer or manager or whatever company you're in is much harder than just finding another low-level person that could replace you. So like I said, he could just be, throwing this accusation around with no proof, and that's where the reprisals are coming from. Because generally, if you accuse your boss of something and you can't prove it, and it's quite the outlandish accusation to where it's going to tarnish your reputation in the business or strain your relationship, yeah, there's probably going to be some reprisals for that. Because people can't just go around, claiming shit. Okay, what else we got? Let's see. Commander Fravor made a statement. Was talking about his Tic Tac. And then David Grusch prefers to use the word non-human biologics, which I don't like. I think it's just another way of covering his ass. I mean, look, a banana is non-human biologics. A tree is non-human biologics. My cat is non-human biologics, So it could be a fucking cargo plane full of bananas that crashed, and he said you could technically say I recovered non-human biologics from it. So it's not a very good way of classifying it. It's so vague and broad that I don't like that he used that statement. Because maybe he just doesn't want to outright say aliens, because maybe there is no aliens, and he just preferred to make it vague to make people speculate. But yeah, the term non-human biologics is not something a real scientist would use to classify that in that situation, because it's too vague. Let's see. So, but he does allude to that, and there was alien bodies, even though he doesn't call them aliens, found, though he has not seen it himself. Again, which is a big red flag to me. It's just, and this is where he talks about the holographic principle of physics, and it says that they might be extra dimensional, blah blah blah. See, this is where, you have to convince me that these exist in the first place before you start going off on an even crazier tangent. I'm not saying he's crazy, but it sounds crazy when you don't even prove your initial point and you start going off on extra dimensional, blah blah. First, we got to even prove that these exist, which I believe they exist. I think Fravor and Graves have much better evidence supporting that whatever these are, they exist. Now, we don't know if they're aliens, we don't know what they are, but they certainly exist. I think there's something going on in the sky. But to start claiming that, first we got to prove where they're coming from. That's what we got to find out first. Where are they coming from? Whose are they? That's the main thing to find out first. Then, based off of that, you can see, are they aliens? Are they ours? Blah, blah, blah. The interdimensional, are they the lizard people from underground Earth? I don't know. Who knows? And of course, when he talks about the holographic principle, says it's only a theoretical discussion. So it's basically paramount to nothing. Right? I don't know why he would even bring this up if all it is just a theoretical discussion of maybe. And also a discussion between who? Was it between him and his buddies, him and some friends? Is this a legitimate discussion between the supposed evidence he saw? It doesn't say where this discussion is coming from. Because if it's just his own personal theory, then that literally just means nothing, even if he is telling the truth. There was a weird part of the interview where they asked him, have we made contact with aliens? And I found that his answer interesting because he just stated that he can't say. He can't say whether, a simple yes or no. Forgive the phone going off. which is weird because he's claiming alien biology or alluding to interdimensional non-human biologics. I'll use his phrasing, but he can't say if he made contact or not, which is weird. It's such an odd thing that he can't say. I mean, but the fact that he said I can't say out loud kind of alludes to yes, because if it was no, then who cares if it was in private or not? Which I don't know. It's weird. Like, he could have just said yes, but I can't talk about specifics. That, fine. If it's true, I understand. But in terms of why he couldn't just say yes or no, that is, I don't know, it's weird to me. It feels like he's playing up to the mystery of it. And my last piece of note is the whole term of non-human biologics, which, yeah, like I said, it just means whatever you want it to mean, basically. It's very vague. I don't like the term at all. Like, as a science student, when I'm doing my lab experiments in lab class, the professor would literally hand you back your lab notebook and say redo it if you ever do something vague like that. Because in terms of like proving it a scientific way, you need to know the specific, like labeling the specifics is very important. You know, telling you what you measured with, how you measured it, the measurements, the conclusion, the hypothesis, it's so meticulously detailed that you need to have all that shit right. Otherwise, the professor just hands you your notebook back and says, do it again. I'm not grading it, literally. So anytime I hear people talk about scientific parts of stories like these, I want to hear the specifics, and they never give it to them, which often means they're full of shit because they don't know what they're talking about. Like look at a talk about, let's say, something real and scientific, like, you know, plate tectonics or weather phenomena, lightning, whatever, you know, weather scientist, anything like that. There is specifics of what is actually going on that they don't bother talking about theoretical, because theoretical doesn't help you in the situation. So like if I ever have like an interview with, say, Bob Lazar, I would be asking him like, okay, you were working on this UFO, right? What was the specific experiment parameters? Did you do any measurements? What did you use to measure? What kind of materials did you work with? What kind of tools? What was the lab design? All that kind of stuff, because you have to literally put that shit in like basic college lab reports. You know, if you're doing a lab class for like chemistry, physics, biology, whatever, you have to put this kind of stuff specifically in these lab reports. So if he was doing real science on this UFO, there's a lab notebook somewhere, whether in Area 51, assuming all this shit exists, that has all the specifics on it. It would be very, very unconventional and weird if they never bothered to document any of the stuff they did. You kind of have to. Like, if you're doing experiments, like, there's no way a person's brain is just keeping up with all the stuff you're doing. So it's weird that nobody bothers asking them about this kind of stuff. But yeah, David Grusch, do I believe him? I don't think so. And also, this is like a side note, but when you listen to him speak, other than how he answers the questions, like I said before, he kind of drones on sometimes and gives you non-answers, which is indicative of bullshit. His body language also just doesn't sit right with me. You know, he pierces his lips a lot. He raises his eyebrows. Honestly, one thing I like to do is let's see if I could find any video of him having normal conversations, right? Because here's another reason why I think Bob Lazar is full of shit, because you can find him having a normal conversation with somebody versus when he's explaining the UFO stuff, and you can see the night and day difference in body language, which often indicates that one of the two body languages he's using is lying, because people's body language is very different compared to when they're telling the truth and lying. And David Grusch, like, his facial expressions are so exaggerated, it almost feels like deliberate acting. You know what I mean? Because like the head movements, the pierced lips, the raised eyebrows, like it feels like a middle school play acting. You know what I mean? Like, you have to exaggerate all your features. So I don't know. I don't like it. I don't think he's I don't know, he needs more. You know what I mean? He just needs more. And I guess the final thing I'll talk about is a lot of people will claim he's very credible because he was in the intelligence you know, community and all that stuff, and he has a career and all this. It's like, guys, military careers don't mean jack shit in terms of credibility. Neither does being in intelligence. If anything, intelligence teaches you how to lie better than most. I got a buddy in intelligence, and he tells me all the time about how people behave. And you see people in the military. People in the military they're just people. And if anything, like, military culture is very interesting, I should say. So just because you're in the military does not mean you're super credible, or if you're in the government, especially in the government, dude. Like, come on. People call the government liars all the time. People call them incompetent all the time. And it's true. They are liars, and they are often incompetent. So just because somebody's in the military, in the government, in the intelligence community doesn't make them automatically credible. Does it make him a little bit more credible than, say, a farmer who says he saw a UFO kidnap his cow or something? Yeah, I'm sure it was. But at the end of the day, it's still just the word of the person, you know? It's not that much different, to be honest, because it's just the word of the farmer versus the word of Grusch. Because right now, he has not presented anything of substantial evidence for it. So, in terms of legitimacy, I would actually place him even lower than Bob Lazar, to be honest. I don't believe Bob Lazar, but I really don't believe this guy because, like I said, at least Bob Lazar's claims is he himself witnessed. So Bob Lazar is either a liar or he's not, and it's kind of made simple that way. With this guy, it could be a number of things, and I can't say I believe him in anything he says until I see something more substantial. Well, that's going to be pretty much it for me, guys. Those are my thoughts on David Grusch. This has been like a little podcast format. I don't know how much more I'm going to do this. I really don't know what kind of content I'm going to do, to be honest. I'm interested in just shooting the shit, talking, you know. If anybody wants to see more, bring up some other topics that I could talk about. I could do more deep dives, maybe. Maybe I could combine the two. I could do like a deep dive podcast, really do my research and just, you know, present notes. You know, I think that might be the way to go. I think I'm going to combine this video and the first video, just do like a little, you know, deep dive format. I'll probably even have some of the evidence on screen for it. So honestly, then if I'm going to do this format again and maybe put some visuals on it, that way we could all just kind of have something to look at. I'm thinking remote viewing might be the next topic I might do, because that's a pretty interesting topic in of itself. Not because I'm interested whether it's real or not, but the fact that there was substantial evidence that that just research into it happened, and happened legitimately and scientifically, because there's a whole actual paper on it. You know, unlike this, there is an actual whole ass you know, study on it, which is interesting. But anyways, that's gonna be it for me, guys. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy. I'm gonna try to be more active on this channel, and give me some tips, you know, throw it in the comments. What do you want to see? How do you want to see it? What kind of content do you like? You know, I'm not trying to copy any of the other big channels, you know, like Y-Files or anything, because he's already got that niche going for him and it's very entertaining. But I'm definitely open to suggestions, comments, criticism, whatever it is you guys feel that you want to throw my way. But also, let's have a discussion downstairs. Do you believe David Grusch? Did I say downstairs? Down in the comments. You know, I'm going to call it downstairs from now on. Fuck it. But let me know. Do you believe him? Is there something I'm missing here? Is there other bits of evidence that I didn't see? Or other sort of, how should I put it? Basically, is there something I missed, right? Anyways, thanks for listening. Catch you guys next time. Peace.